So what if I told you the next world superpower is Zundan? Gonna be built with tanks and fighter jets, but with roads and ports and power plants. Yeah, it's kind of like a real estate empire. But on a global scale, that's what China is up to with its trillion-dollar plan to reshape the world. But here's the twist. The real action is happening in Africa. It's a continent full of untapped potential. Lots of young people, growing economies, and tons of raw materials, from copper to cobalt to oil and gold. China sees Africa not just as a place to do business, but as a strategic partner for its future growth. And the question is, how does China's plan to dominate Africa reflect its broader strategy for global power? So let's decode this grand plan. In 2013, China unveiled the Belt and Road Initiative, aka BRI. It's a global infrastructure strategy. In simple terms, China offers countries money to build highways, railways, ports, airports, and energy plants in exchange for long-term influence. And guess which region has been the biggest fan of BRI? You got it, Africa. Over 40 African countries have signed on to various BRI projects worth hundreds of billions of dollars. China has built a port in Kenya, railways in Ethiopia, airports in Angola, and power plants in Sudan. And guess what? Chinese companies now own or operate some of these crucial infrastructure. In Djibouti, China even has its first overseas military base, a major strategic move near one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world. So it's not just about construction, it's about gaining long-term influence. But here's the million-dollar question. How are these massive projects being funded? Well, mostly through loans. Here's where things get interesting. Critics argue that China lends money to countries knowing they might struggle to repay, hoping that these nations will eventually fall into debt and give up control of their assets. They call it debt trap diplomacy. China denies these claims. Some African countries say they've benefited from Chinese loans and partnerships. But the truth is, when you can't pay your debts, someone else gets to call the shots. That's where the real power lies. Now, Africa is a continent full of promise. It's home to 1.4 billion people, many of them young and eager for opportunity. The African economy is on the rise with several countries experiencing rapid growth, and there's plenty of raw materials to go around, from copper and cobalt to oil and gold. China needs these resources for its industries, but more importantly, it sees Africa as a market for its manufactured goods. As Africa grows, it will need roads, railways, and ports to move people and products. And who's best positioned to provide these essential services? You guessed it, China. Here's the big picture. As the US and Europe focus more on themselves, China is out there planting flags, laying rails, and signing deals. It's building partnerships, investing in infrastructure, and creating jobs. Meanwhile, the rest of the world debates China's intentions. China keeps building, and it builds fast. The real question is, how can Africa benefit from these investments without falling into a debt trap? Can African countries manage these Chinese loans responsibly and use them for genuine development? Or will they fall into the same pitfalls that have affected other developing nations? Let me tell you this story is far from over. Africa is a continent on the rise, and it deserves partners, not lenders. We need to support initiatives that empower African countries to chart their own path to growth and prosperity. If you found this breakdown valuable, hit subscribe for more explainers on business, power, and geopolitics.